the technology that McLaren had evolved through the 60s and 70s was great, because they won world championships, they won Indy, they won Can-Am. What a heritage. But as we got to the end of the 70s and ground effect was introduced, they produced a car called an M28, which used a honeycomb aluminium construction. And frankly, it was the worst car I think McLaren ever made. And they then introduced M29, which was really the nearest thing you could get to a facsimile of a Williams at that point. And then at the end of 1980, the M30. But they were still fundamentally the aluminium steel philosophy. And it was when John then looked at carbon fibre and found the way to manufacture the product, manufacture a chassis through the enthusiasm from Hercules over in the States, that the if you like, the dream or the potential of the material began to be realized. So we had a start of the year, we still started with an M29 because we hadn't quite got this car perfected to the point we could take it to a race. We came here 30 years minus a day to run it for the first time. Took it to Long Beach with a couple of issues at Long Beach, which decided no, we'll not run the car, and then it ran for the first time in a Grand Prix in Argentina. Then back in Europe, third in Jarama in the Spanish Grand Prix, second in Dijon, French Grand Prix, came to Silverstone, which of course at those days, even in 81, was a power circuit, but we had a quick car, we had a reliable car. I had a big setback in the Grand Prix because I caught up to the tail of Alan Jones, who was following Gilles Villeneuve, who was driving the Ferrari as I would imagine a hyperactive child would drive it, and watching Villeneuve through the chicane. It wasn't if he was going to have an accident, but when. And it did come, and he spun the car in the middle of the chicane. Alan Jones was unsighted because of the tyre smoke. I hit the brakes and managed not to hit Alan. Andrea de Cesaris behind me turned sharp left, had his own accident. And out of the 4 cars that went into the chicane at one time, I was the only one that came out. But in the effort to slow the car down to avoid Alan Jones, the engine had stalled. So I'd luckily dipped the clutch, had a little bit of momentum, put the fuel pump back on again, bump started it, and got going. So I had to repass another 5 or 6 cars that I was already ahead of. So I think my race victory that day, and it was a team victory, was a justifiable victory. And it also, I think, if you want to say validated, the efforts of Ron Dennis and John Barnard in taking McLaren from essentially the technology that had been in existence more or less since Formula One and motor racing had begun, steel and aluminium, and set a process in motion which ultimately would lead to where we are today in contemporary Formula One, and in fact in contemporary motor racing, outside of things like touring cars where they are made of steel currently. Everything is made of carbon fibre, and the reason it's made of carbon fibre is because it's stronger, is more rigid, and it's safer. But it is important that it is applied, it's the application of this technology that's the material in itself, if it's not used correctly, isn't the right way to go. 30 years ago we were the pathfinders. I'm delighted to say I was a part of that history with the company, and they've gone on and won world championships and manufacturing championships, and now they're introducing MP412C with a new step forward in the manufacturing process. It is quick. It is massively quick. Quickest road car I've ever driven by a country mile, but also it enables the company to do other things in terms of the mechanical end of the car, and it's a very sophisticated car, the suspension, what you can do with the car. I mean, you come to a corner in a road car, in a race, on a racetrack, inevitably you get understeer. I found, and I wasn't on the ragged edge, but the car turned when I turned the wheel. And that sounds very fundamental, but it's a rarity in a road car under duress on a racetrack.